Hello and welcome to Dish Shelved with Adam White. I'm going to talk this week about C.J. Box again. I did a video on his first book, Open Season, which is this one. I'm going to talk about his next two books in the series. I read them on Kindle though, so I'm just showing this for name recognition for him. Uh, the second novel in the series and the third novel in the series I really liked. The first time when I read the first book, I felt that I was kind of half and half on it because I wasn't sure what to expect, and I said some of it was a little bit out of my zone of usual reading, and I thought that afterwards I really wanted to see what happened next with these characters, and so I decided to go ahead and read the next one. And then after I read it, I went ahead and read the third one too. So obviously, I liked them a lot more than I thought I would. And I'm probably going to go ahead and read the fourth one next, which I won't saddle you with a video on that. But I wanted to go ahead and do a video on these next two books because I enjoyed them so much. I'd like to thank Brian Lee Durfee, another YouTuber and an author as well. He gave effusive praise about these books, which is why I picked it up in the first place. So thank you to him for recommending these. And let me tell you what it says about the second book. It's called Savage Run by C.J. Box. When a massive blast rocks the forests of 12 Sleep County, Wyoming, Game Warden Joe Pickett is called to the scene to help investigate the death of a colorful environmental activist. The case is wrapped up quickly, explained as an environmental publicity stunt gone wrong, but Joe isn't convinced. He soon discovers that clues surround a deadly conspiracy, one that will test his survival skills and his determination to do the right thing despite all costs. He really gets into it in this one. Uh, how a game warden from Wyoming ends up in the middle of a national conspiracy, I'll never know. But uh, he, like I said in the first book, he got involved in those murders, and now he's involved in another set of murders. The sheriff even says at one point, "How come every time someone ends up dead in this county, you're right in the middle of it?" And it's a good question because he's just a game warden. But it's he does end up in the middle of it because it always usually involves something to do with his line of work too. And this one he gets involved in has to do a lot with environmental activists and a conspiracy with, I won't say who because that's part of the mystery of the book. Uh, he ends up getting caught out trying to protect some people and uh, ends up in a place called Savage Run, which is a famous canyon around his county area there, and has to figure out how to navigate it and get out with his life. He still is not a very good shot. Like I said, I was not expecting, usually when you read things like this, especially someone that's a game warden, you'd think they'd be handy with a gun. But they play up how he's not handy with a gun, and I actually think that's kind of endearing to the character that he's a game warden that deals with all this hunting and fishing and everything, but he's really not that good with a gun. So I got more of that this time, and he grows on you as a character because he's just such a good guy. He really is a good guy. He's a family man. He always does the right thing, even at the detriment to himself. He gets in way over his head in the second book, Savage Run. He ends up against some really bad people, and he you have to see whether or not he comes out on top. He There's some funny moments in it. There is a lot more suspense, I think, in the second one than there was in the first one, and he he does it. Let me get you what the third one is called: Winterkill. And it says, it's an hour away from darkness. A bitter storm is raging, and Joe Pickett is deep in the forest edging Battle Mountain, shotgun in his left hand, his truck's detached steering wheel handcuffed to his right, and Lamar Gardner's arrow-riddled corpse splashed against a tree in front of him. Lamar's murder and the sudden onslaught of the snowstorm warn, get off the mountain. But Joe knows the episode is far from over, and when his daughter gets caught up in the hunt for the killer, Joe will stop at nothing to get her back. This one starts out again with a murder that he's right in the middle of, and he the first part of the book is a search for the murderers, and they actually kind of resolve that about 2/3 of the way through the book, because there's more going on than just the murder mystery. And I thought that was an interesting choice, because usually you don't find out who did it until the end. And it really works for this one because there's more going on to it than just that. There's again kind of a conspiracy going on, but this time it's with the Forest Service and the FBI, and uh, he just really gets into the middle of it again. The funny thing is about it is that Joe Pickett really doesn't, he's not actively an investigator. He's not that good with a gun. And he gets involved because he tries to do the right thing. The thing is that all these stories happen either to him or around him, and they end up involving him in different ways. Now, in this one, it involves his daughter, a foster daughter that he got in the first novel, and there's a lot of trouble with her involved. Uh, there's also some anti-government people that are part of a caravan. Uh, there's a lot of moving parts in Winterkill, and it all works fantastically. The prose is great. It is in Savage Run as well. I think some of the things that I found uh, a little bit iffy in the first novel, I think he's worked those out in the second and third novel. And it's a really interesting series. And there's something like 22 books in this series already. And he's got another one coming out here in the next couple of months. And you think to yourself, how can a game warden get involved in murders and conspiracies 22 times over the course of some years? But it works. Uh, it works. It's actually, like I said, kind of endearing to him about the character, that he does do the right thing, even though when he ends up on the wrong end of stuff a lot of the times. Now, the third book turns out a lot differently than what I expected, and it's kind of dark. It's definitely the darkest of the three, and kind of sad. And it makes me want to keep reading the series. And I was really surprised by the ending of the third book, Winterkill. Now, I highly recommend these books. Uh, Definitely good reading, good mystery. They're not. The third one was a lot heavier dramatically than what the first two were. Although the second one was that way as well. There was a lot of tension in it, uh, and it's they're just really good books. And I just want you to know that's why I went ahead and did this video on the sequel and the first two sequels to the first one, Open Season, which is this, uh, because I wanted to come back and say I did go decide to read further, and I really, really enjoyed what I read, and I think you will too if you give them a chance. And so check out the Joe Pickett novels by C.J. Box, and I think you'll really get a good enjoyment out of them if you give them a chance. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you again next week.